It's Halloween. As I record this, Halloween makes you do strange things, like smoke a pipe. Not that I've lit this pipe for a long time. Don't worry, I'm not actually going to start taking up smoking. There we go. Got it going. Yeah, Halloween. Weird things happen. And between now and, well, the 7th, weird things are going to happen. I think the King prorogued Parliament just before, a couple of days ago, did he not? For no apparent reason. And of course, we've got Halloween today, and then we've got the 5th of November. And yesterday I understand that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, called a special Cobra meeting, worried about domestic terrorism. Things are afoot. I feel a bit like Sherlock Holmes doing a detective work. Not that I look like he didn't have this type of pipe, did he? He had a drop-down pipe, a meerschaum pipe, if I remember, and a deerstalker hat. I haven't got any of those things, I'm sorry to say. Anyway, the trappings of fun. It does make you do strange things at Halloween, and down here where I am last night, went for a stroll with the lovely Julia, and the moon was out, almost complete. Weird things are about to happen. Smoking that pipe reminds me of the 1940s, really. For me, the last time that life was perhaps freer. Food was being grown in this country by people. We didn't have the big agricultural medicines. Big Pharma had yet to sort of get that big grip on everybody. After the Second World War, things have changed, and in the last 80-something years, things have gone downhill, I think. We've seen huge amounts of sprawling of urban towns. We've seen these new builds everywhere, built on farmers' fields. Farmers who would have, in the past, smoked clay pipes. When I was a lad running around on the farm that was near me, that went out of business and was derelict for a long time, which became a young kid's playground. As a boy with my mates, we would run across the fields and we would find in the ground the stems and sometimes the bowls of clay pipes. It was lovely. That farmer's field and all of that area now has new builds on it, built about 10, 15 years ago. And I've been back and I've cried at how they destroyed the playground of my youth. I made a video. If I can find it, I'll put a link to the description where I go back in one of my previous incarnations as the Bald Explorer. It was a time, of course, when Englishmen, British people, Welshmen, Scotsmen, they had a clear identity of who they were, and their country was something they were proud of. When I look round now at this country, and I'm still proud of what we've done, but not proud of what we've done in the last 80 years, the people in control who've promised us so much and delivered so little. In fact, each time anybody gets into that position to ask for your vote, and they provide their manifesto, and they come out with their begging bowl, and they ask, and they beg, please vote for us. We're going to improve the NHS. We're going to improve the borders. We're going to improve the police service. We're going to improve education, all these things. And in fact, all they've done is ruined them. Look at where we are. Look at how many governments have been and gone, and look at where we are. The other day, Andrew Bridgen released a video. I'll put the link in the description. He knows that we're about to go into some bad times. He's been, of course, out crying the terrible harms that have happened as we've had this medical intervention. People have been dying suddenly, and he's tried to raise the alarm to Parliament and get people interested. But for some reason, I think we know why, but for that reason, Parliament And the MPs, the other MPs, have been silent. They don't want to know. They're embarrassed. They know what's going on. They've got nowhere to hide, and they can't hide the bodies. And they will soon, I'm afraid, be answering. Well, I'm not afraid. They will soon be answering for their murderous deeds. But Andrew Bridgen was standing by a church, and he was talking about the church, how the church had been, of course, the centre of the community for 1,000 years, up until recently, when these Luciferians, the Freemasons, the Satanists, the WEF, the WHO, the bankers, these people have wanted to get rid of the symbolism of churches, the symbolism of having a national faith. Now, I'm not saying some people, of course, still have a faith. I don't follow a Christianity faith as such, although we are a Christian country and we have our traditions that we've grown up with and lived with. I personally believe that I am an unnamed, sentient being that is living in this incarnation in a body of flesh and blood. And I peer out through these eyes and I look at this strange reality unfolding before me. But a church has been the community centre, a place, a meeting place for many people for over 1,000 years. And also the pub also was a place, a meeting place, where all types of people from the top down would meet and discuss and talk about the affairs of the day and things of national importance. And we've seen how in recent years, how governments have tried to shut these things down. We saw that during the pandemic, in which the government was very keen not to allow people to go to pubs or churches so that they could talk and discuss what was going on. In fact, the government was very keen to isolate us so that we could not. But perhaps what they hadn't reckoned for was that we went online and we spoke in groups, perhaps WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups and other forums. And we started to ask questions and we worked out what was really going on. And some of us have awoken to that and know exactly what has been going on. And so, of course, the government, now very keen to shut us all up again, has put out this online safety bill. They don't want us to know how they really want to isolate us in these so-called 15-minute cities. And I hear that 14 of the UK's cities are bankrupt or about to go bankrupt. I'm not quite sure what that means. How do you make a city bankrupt? Is that all the independent family-run businesses, all the corporations in there have all run out of money and about to go bankrupt? Or do they mean the councils have gone bankrupt? And if that is the case, then what we need clearly is parallel councils, so that when the council in the city or town or village goes bankrupt or is unable or incapable of running anything, this parallel council just steps in. The parallel council run by the people, and simply says, well, listen, we can take it over. We don't mind. After all, if people are paying council tax, and I'm not suggesting that you do, of course, because it goes to a consolidatory fund, and that then helps pay for wars and all sorts of nasty things, and isn't actually going to the people in the town, not directly, which then makes that a bit strange. So if you had a parallel council that says, actually, we'll collect the local money, we can negotiate how much people pay according to their means, not in a horrible means-tested way, but perhaps they can negotiate what services they want. They perhaps want the bins and they want some street lighting, but they may not want other services. They may want to have a bit more of a sort of local referendum about certain roads having potholes repaired or certain other things, buildings going up. Perhaps they want to be able to veto ugly buildings, buildings that have mean windows and bogus balconies. Those horrible places that you actually don't want that seem to be pushed through, or maybe some of those new builds on a farmer's field, which would then, of course, limit whoever wanted to farm on that field going on into the future. Maybe people want to have a parallel council and be able to vote for the things that really affect them. And of course, they would be able to do that by collecting the money from the people. If you had, say, 200,000 people in your town and you spent £1,000 a year you collected £1,000 a year, you'd have £2 million to spend on that town, rather than sending it to the government to fund weapons of mass destruction in wars that we've got no right to be in and nobody really asked, no ordinary everyday man and woman. So the church, being this meeting place, was very much central to Andrew Bridgen's video. And to me, it gave me an idea. I've suggested this to a few people and they thought it was pretty good. That really, perhaps in a couple of months' time, if we can organise it, we should have a day in which we ring the bells, the church bells, those important signals that ring out across the land. We did this in the beginning of the Second World War. We rang bells. We had a strategy that if the invasion happened, I think it was Operation Sea Lion, that the Nazis wanted to come over, if that happened, we would have a warning sign by ringing the bells of all the churches. And I feel that now we should set a date and ring the bells. These bells, of course, would be there by the people, for the people of this land, saying, no, we don't want anti-government policies. We don't want anti-government ideas. We don't want an anti-government, a government that wants to shut us down, that wants to have martial law, that wants to carry on and be influenced by places like the WHO, the World Health Organization, that wants to buy our sovereignty. And you've got to ask yourself anyway, how can they possibly have the sovereignty of the men and women of this land? Remember, a government can't have sovereignty. It isn't living and breathing. It is a dead entity. The government, as we know, is registered on places like Dun and Bradstreet as a business, as a for-profit business, a corporation. It isn't an assembly of people that we've actually voted for. It's a company. A company cannot have any sovereignty, cannot have sovereignty over its people. Remember, man comes first. Man then creates a government, and the government is there for man. They are our servants. The created cannot be above the creator. The only thing above man, of course, would be God, the source, the universal mind, whatever it is that has created us. So a government cannot have sovereignty, and so the WHO cannot sell our sovereignty, but they might think so, and they might act as if they have. And so I think we should call for a day, a national day, across the land, possibly across the world, in which we say no. We say no, we will not comply. Your policies are anti-human. You've proved this time and time again. IDs. Who needs IDs? Digital IDs. CBDC, central bank digital currencies. A fiat currency which is based on debt. Especially when we understand that, of course, the trust that was created when we were born has plenty of money. We're actually all creditors. We don't need the king. What claim has the king got on the land? If you trace it back to, say, 1066, it was a bunch of thugs from Normandy who just bashed up a few people, stuck an eye in the current king then, and declared that he owned all the land. Well, that's not honourable. That's not for natural law. That's not God's law. God created the land and gave it to man to have, all men. Not just those privileged ones who've got swords and thugs. So the king, in my mind, has no claim to the land whatsoever. They may still have thugs and pay them to do their work, but it isn't really theirs. They may argue with their acts and statutes, which is a load of old nonsense. It's just a game anyway. The men and women of this world know now that that is just a game. They want jurisdiction. It's contract law, but you don't have to contract with them. We could just simply say no. And that, to me, is what this day of bell ringing is all about. Ringing out to everybody, to let everybody know that we are not having policies of anti-humanism. We're not having transhumanism. We're not having our school children sexualized at such a young age, taught how to masturbate at 4 years old. We're not having the education mucked about. We're not having doctors prescribing drugs that will kill you. We're not having any of that. Ring out the changes. It's going to get tough, I know that. They've got plans up their sleeves. They've all got these ideas they're going to push down on us. But we're just going to say, no, we're not going to comply. So it's Halloween as I record this, and men do very strange things. Women probably too. And if you see people going around with nice hats and pipes, smoking around, they're probably decent sorts with funny ideas. Do not comply to the nonsense they're about to push out. It is all complete rubbish.